Okay, welcome everyone to February's Cook Right, Eat Right. My name is Michelle Riley, and I am a registered dietitian and professor in hospitality management here at JCCC. And we are really excited to partner with the University of Kansas Hospital and the University of Kansas Medical Center to bring you this presentation tonight. And I am first going to introduce Dr. Deborah Sullivan, who is the chair of dietetics and nutrition at the University of Kansas Medical Center.
Thank you, Michelle. And as Michelle said, we're very excited to host these education classes, as it is a collaboration between the KU Health System, the University of Kansas Medical Center, and Johnson County Community College, their culinary center, in this spectacular space. So it's my pleasure tonight to introduce our first two speakers. So our first speaker is Dr. Mazhar Afaq, and Dr. Afaq is a cardiologist at the University of Kansas Hospital at the health system, and he with a focus on prevention, so we're very lucky to have him here this evening. And then our dietitian is Nicolette Jones, and Nicolette is the cardiology dietitian at the KU Health System. So we are very honored to have both them speaking. So now I'll ask Dr. Afaq to come up.
Good evening, everybody. I think you did a fantastic job with the pronunciation. Thank you. It's interesting, patients have a tough time, so sometimes they remember me as Afaq, like the duck. Although then I tell them that, you know, the name actually has a big history, and is of the actual meaning is manifestation of the horizon. So then we often get into a discussion about names and meanings. But anyway, thanks for having me here. Aisha, you're at the front row, so I guess you get all the questions. I wanted to speak about heart health, and we're going to go through a few slides together. When patients come to me and want to know about what's going on, you know, they want to know the nuts and bolts. How much of an issue is heart disease? Well, every 42 seconds, somebody is having a heart attack. 1 in 4 deaths are from heart disease. About 15 to 17 million Americans above the age of 20 have coronary heart disease. And about 630,000 Americans die each year from heart disease. So it's a big thing that we have to take note of. There's certain things which put you at higher risk, and those include if you have a family history of heart disease, say a male first-degree relative under the age of 55 had heart disease, or a female first-degree relative below the age of 65. If you already have high cholesterol, there's certain conditions such as metabolic syndrome, where triglycerides are high, waist circumference is high, glucose is high, blood pressure is high. 3 of those things will give you metabolic syndrome. If somebody has kidney disease, inflammatory conditions such as psoriasis or rheumatoid arthritis is even a risk factor. If somebody has had preeclampsia during pregnancy, that could also pose some risk. And certain ethnicities, South Asians, for example, have higher risk too. So what can we do about it? And Thomas Edison had said, opportunity is missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. This isn't easy, but it can be, because small steps can make big differences. And the American Heart Association came up with Life's Simple 7. And those are 7 parameters that each of us can do to make a difference. And another initiative that they came up with was Know Your Numbers. So I'd like to just go through each of these briefly to touch upon those. The first thing is stopping smoking. So if you smoke, you should stop smoking, because the benefits are not only short-term and immediate, but also long-term. So the first immediate measures can be a change in your taste buds to lowering your heart rate. The later measures can be from reducing your risk of cancers, but for the heart, after a year, your risk of heart disease is is cut in half compared to smokers. So there's a big difference in that respect. There's a couple of things that patients often say to me when we're talking about stopping smoking, and they say, but you know, if I stop smoking, I'm going to gain weight. And there was a study done in Korea, in fact, of 100,000 men who smoked, and looked at those people who gave up and quit and what the change in their weight was. And whether somebody gained weight or lost weight didn't make, still they had a reduction in benefits. So that was an important thing. Another thing that we hear sometimes is from patients say, look, well, I've cut down to 1 or 2 cigarettes now, I'm doing really well. And that should be encouraged because it's not easy to stop smoking. But even if you smoke 1 cigarette, that carries the same risk, or that carries approximately half the risk as if you're smoking 20 cigarettes. So it's not like we would think that, oh, only 1 cigarette is not going to cause much of a risk. So that was from looking at 141 previous studies, and so important data. Activity is another measure, and we try and encourage at least 30 minutes of exercise 5 days a week. There's moderate intensity exercise, which we would talk of brisk walking, and vigorous intensity exercise such as jogging. So if we can keep those numbers up, that is also beneficial. This should also be paired with some resistance exercises, so that's important too. The benefits of walking. This can decrease your risk of heart disease, cancer, stroke. Your LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, can be reduced slightly. Reduction in weight, reduction in stress, and even depression. It increases your healthy cholesterol, increases your energy, and even longevity. Losing weight is another important factor. We use the body mass index as a calculator, which looks at the height over weight as a ratio. And even losing 3 to 5% of your weight can improve your cardiometabolic risk. So when we're talking about weight loss, it's important to see what's achievable, and even small measures, which are sustained, are important. And typically when I'm seeing somebody, we'll try and have an aim of 5 to 10% of their weight to lose within 6 months. So, and one of the best ways is to achieve this is reduction in calorie intake, and really more than 500 kilocalories per day reduction. Another number that we should be aware about is our blood pressure. Elevated blood pressure, we like to keep it around 120/80. When it goes up to 129, 130s, then we're going into the hypertensive stage 1, stage 2 range. And blood pressure can have huge effects. By treating blood pressure, you can reduce your risk of stroke by up to 40%. You can reduce your risk of heart failure by 50%, and reduce your risk of having a heart attack by up to 25%. So very important data to take note of. Reducing your sugar intake is another important factor. If you have a fasting blood sugar of greater than 100, that puts you at a risk of pre-diabetes. And diabetes, we know, is a risk factor for heart disease. Cholesterol is something that we are continuously challenged with, and some of the numbers, if we talk about know your numbers, the total cholesterol number should be below 200. Your triglycerides, which are a reflection of sugars and carbohydrates as well, it should be less than 150. Your healthy cholesterol, sometimes 40 to 50 is good in men, but you know, this number over here, it says 60, so the higher, that's better. And your bad cholesterol, these numbers have changed and have gone lower, but 60 to 130 is a number that we try and keep it below. How we control cholesterol, well, you've all heard of statins, and but many times patients speak to me about fish oil supplements and different ways of treating cholesterol. Statins are one type of medication, but there's many different types now which are out there. One study that had come out in January, after having some studies which weren't positive in favor of fish oil supplements, this was actually a derivative of EPA, which is found from fish, and this looked at whether there was a reduction in cardiovascular death, heart attack, coronary artery disease, angina, and there was a reduction up to about 25%. The other thing we can do is eat better, and that's where some of the focus here from Nicolette will be as well, I hope. And when we look at goals for diet interventions, I always like to know, well, what's the purpose of why somebody wants to make a dietary change? Is it because they want to lose weight? Is that they want to try and be healthier with regards to their health? Are they aiming to get into a certain dress size for a wedding or a pant size for a wedding? So what are the goals for diet interventions? And if we talk about heart disease prevention, the DASH diet was one of the first diets that we really pushed towards, which was high in fruit and vegetables, high in low-fat dairy, and low in sodium. And that shows that there was a reduction in blood pressure in the DASH diet. One of the few diets which have been randomized and have been studied well, but there was some question about the randomization recently, but that was called the PREDIMED study, and that was based on a Mediterranean diet, which showed a significant reduction also in the cardiovascular disease parameters. And a Mediterranean diet, I think we will go over this somewhat, so I will skip over that. I often get asked questions about alcohol. Alcohol should be in moderation. Some people forget that beer has a lot of sugar, so sometimes that they're trying to do well with their diet, but they're still drinking. That's one kind of loophole that gets missed. There's also benefits, which are, the factors which are in red wine that can, for those people that don't drink, pomegranate juice can also be of benefit. There's something that we maybe we'll talk about in questions afterwards, but I had kept this slide in to remind me to talk about coronary artery calcium scores. Some people are getting calcium scores which tell us about the buildup of plaque around the heart, and that can be a useful measure to help risk stratify where you are with regards to your risk for heart disease. Since it's about Valentine's Day tomorrow, what about chocolate? Chocolate is high in dietary flavonoids, and especially dark chocolate. So that has been associated with lower risk of heart disease. Some studies suggest that chocolate or cocoa consumption is associated with lower risk of insulin resistance as well as blood pressure. But I always say that this is not a method, this is not a treatment for heart disease. It's that if you're having chocolate, try and have dark chocolate, and don't think of it as a medicine. So thank you very much.
All right, well, I'll get started. Thank you so much, Maz, for that. A lot of stuff that I can elaborate on from there. So we're on the same page, which is good. So kind of stemming off his discussion about the DASH diet, really a lot of good research within this diet, and from a media standpoint got a lot of good information. One of the top diets of 2019 in US News and World Report, along with the Mediterranean diet, and both of those have a lot of similar recommendations. So from an increase standpoint, we want to increase fruits and vegetables. I don't think you're ever going to find a well-researched diet that doesn't encourage you to increase fruits and vegetables. Whole grains, beans, seeds and nuts, lean meats and proteins, unsaturated fats, and then increasing your physical activity. So all benefits to improve our heart. We want to decrease any added salt and decrease the intake of high sodium foods. So sometimes patients kind of say, well, I don't add any salt to anything, so I'm eating a low sodium diet. Not technically true, because a lot of the foods that we can buy at the store will already have sodium in them. Red and processed meats, added sugars, saturated and trans fats, and then reducing your weight is going to help with your heart as well. So these are kind of the guidelines that we'll talk about today. So visually, this is what that looks like. You'll see a good emphasis on fruits and vegetables, half your plate. Whole grains, if you are eating grains, and then healthy protein, lean, about 25% of your plate. So as you can probably think about a typical meal in our country, meat is usually the largest portion on the plate, taking up half or even more, and maybe the starch or our grain is taking up the other half, or our potato. So we really want to incorporate more non-starchy vegetables and fruits, and so causing that protein and that grain category to get a little bit smaller. And then beverages and healthy oils, kind of supplementing that. Water, tea, coffee with little to no added sugar. So the following slides will kind of look into this a little bit more. But visually, this is the style of plate that we want to see 3 times a day. So starting with the first step, making half your plate fruits and vegetables. So this is kind of on the encouragement of increasing our fruit and vegetable intake. We want to try to get at least 2.5 cups of vegetables in your diet a day. If you're not there, increasing by an additional half cup, adding broccoli into pasta or something that you're usually preparing. Adding a vegetable in there can be a really easy way to just add a little bit more of that every day and kind of building on that. It's not a, overnight type of recommendation. You're allowed to take baby steps into something like this because it's not a usual for everybody. Potatoes aren't going to count for your vegetable goal. As a culture, we eat a lot of potatoes, so and they're starchy. They do have nutrition, but like where that brown rice is on the plate, we want that to be a little bit of a smaller portion size. 2 cups of fruit a day, and fresh or frozen are both just as nutritious, and those are great for reducing the sodium. So again, along with those recommendations from the DASH guidelines. You want to vary your fruits and vegetables. The different colors aren't just for fun. They actually provide different types of antioxidants and different types of benefits. So whether that means every week that you go to the grocery store, you're picking out something new, or if you shop every other week, these are opportunities to maybe kind of vary it a little bit and try something new, which is always important. So, as we can probably guess, intake of fruits and vegetables is going to protect against heart disease, stroke, risk of cancer, high blood pressure, and eating more fruits and vegetables can help reduce your cholesterol. Like we saw in Maz's slides previously, diets that are high in fruits and vegetables are most effective and most researched in helping reduce your risk of heart disease. So, time to get on board. A lot of people try to skip this part, but it's definitely really important and beneficial. Choose 100% whole grains. So there's a varied amount and type of whole grains that exist. You don't have to do wheat specifically if you don't want to, or if you have a sensitivity. Oats, quinoa, brown rice, all wonderful. The reason that we encourage whole grains is the nutrition that is naturally in that grain. Anytime you do a refined flour or a white bread, you're missing some of those nutritional benefits. They also have fiber, so they're going to slow down digestion a little bit, which helps with your blood sugar control, and it can also help you feel more full and satisfied. So if you do eat grains, choosing more whole grains is going to be that benefit there. You'll see there's a little picture of the bran and the different types of areas of the whole grain. So picking fresh lean meats and plant proteins. So one thing that kind of sets the Mediterranean and the DASH diets apart is the continued encouragement to reduce your intake of red meat and avoid processed meats. So choosing more fish, poultry, beans, nuts. You can do soy, tofu as well. But these are low in saturated fats, and that is the goal, to reduce our intake of saturated fat, which can raise our total cholesterol. So limiting red meat. We live in the Midwest. Red meat is a common food here. So we usually encourage 2 servings a week or less. There's good research that shows if it's I think the Mediterranean kind of recommends about, once a month or less. So kind of getting to that as much as we can that you find can be an appropriate lifestyle for you, but trying to limit your intake of red meat. Fish, if you're a fish kind of person, you're interested in learning how to prepare things like that. Salmon, tuna, these fatty fishes are going to be high in omega-3s, which can help reduce cholesterol levels and raise your HDL. So, 2 times a week for fish is a good goal to have. You can swap out your red meat for fish, and that can kind of make that goal a little bit easier. And eggs are a common question that we get a lot. I think for decades we thought eggs were horrible for us. It's true they do contain cholesterol, but they contain protein and nutrients that are beneficial to us. And it's more of a whole food, I would say. Nothing's really getting through the little shell. No one's messing with that inside. But they do contain saturated fat. So just like how red meat, butter, cream can raise your total, eating a lot of egg yolks can potentially do that as well. So 2 to 4 a week is that general recommendation. Again, it really kind of depends on what your total saturated fat intake is. You could be eating an egg a day. If the rest of your diet is relatively low in saturated fat, you could still see good results with your cholesterol lowering goals. Avoiding processed meats is really what we recommend. So your salami, your bologna, your bacon, your ham, not only can be high in saturated fat, but also a lot of sodium. So 2 things that we want to reduce from a Mediterranean and a DASH kind of diet standpoint. So dairy, we didn't necessarily see dairy listed on that healthy eating plate on that previous slide. I don't think it needs to be a must in your diet, but who doesn't love a little bit of cheese? So again, dairy products can be high in saturated fat if we're choosing whole, milk, butter, cream, and so depending upon your use of these and your preference, choosing reduced fat versions of these can be more beneficial to, again, just decrease your total saturated fat intake within your diet. If you're worried about getting calcium, there are other calcium-rich sources in different types of foods. So seeking out calcium doesn't have to be limited just to dairy products. Skim or 1% or non-fat are kind of those kind of keywords that you can think of to help reduce your saturated fat intake. So I want to talk about healthy fats and oils, just kind of differentiate what the not so good fats are. So heart healthy fats are going to be monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats. So basically olive oil, canola oil, nuts and seeds, avocado, basically plant-based oils are going to be very heart healthy, help reduce cholesterol, reduce that LDL cholesterol. The polyunsaturated fats, that's where you're going to see those omega-3 benefits. I did not put fish on here, but that salmon, tuna would kind of count for those. Different types of oils, and also walnuts are great from a perspective of getting omega-3s if you're not a big fish fan. Not so good fats, so I talked a lot about saturated fat, cream, butter, red meat. These are things that we want to limit. They can raise your total cholesterol, which in turn, you're going to be raising your LDL. We want to limit, doesn't mean you have to eliminate completely, but choosing, to reduce in some capacity. Coconut oil does count towards a saturated fat. It is plant-based, so there is that benefit. There's not a ton of research that allows me to say, yes, coconut oil can be deemed something entirely different. But there is promising research, but we can't necessarily say you can start pouring it on everything. So just like with everything, it's moderation and utilizing it kind of with that awareness in mind. Trans fats are really the ones we want you to eliminate completely. You're not going to see trans fats just sitting on the shelf like you do olive oil. These are going to actually do the opposite of what we want to do for your heart. So they're going to raise your LDL, which is your not good cholesterol, and it's going to decrease your HDL, which is your healthy. So essentially doing the opposite of what we want. These are going to be in the form of partially hydrogenated oil, so mostly on processed and packaged foods. So when you're looking at ingredients, looking for that hydrogenated oil and leaving it on the shelf and not putting it in your grocery cart. Sometimes fried foods will also potentially have trans fats. Hopefully, they're slowly getting out of our food supply. So back in June, they did start the process of eliminating trans fats from our diet, but always good to be a smart consumer, and trying to reduce processed foods in general can help you do that. So how do we kind of incorporate this? Obviously through the recipes tonight we'll see how to incorporate some of those healthy fats using liquid plant oils for cooking and baking, reducing trans fats, partially hydrogenated oils. Sometimes you'll see those in like stick margarines that you would use for cooking and baking. Limit butter and coconut oil use. Aim for a serving of omega-3s, so whether that's your fish, your walnuts, canola oil, flaxseed, these are great ways to get some of those omega-3 benefits. And then cutting back on red meat, cheese, milk, ice cream. Again, these areas of your diet that can be high in saturated fat. So this is a graphic that I like to show a lot. It essentially puts all of that in perspective. So visually you can see the most beneficial are going to be those omega-3s. You kind of go down the list and you see, everything in green is going to be beneficial for our heart. We kind of cross this line into the saturated fats. We see that the red meat, the butter, and we kind of go even farther to most harmful, and we see those trans fats. So from a perspective standpoint, that the saturated fat is okay in moderation, limit that, and with the trans fats, we really want to eliminate those completely. So like we said before, added sugars, good research to show that a high sugar intake can raise your triglycerides and raise your cholesterol levels. So a study here showed that had a 38% higher risk of dying from cardiovascular disease than those who had less of their calorie intake from added sugars. So we want to kind of reduce our consumption. Doesn't mean that all sugar is bad. I think that's a common misconception. But those added sugars, those refined sugars, are really the ones we want you to tackle first. So what does that mean? Not all sugars are the same. Some are natural and some are added to our foods. So carbohydrates in general are your sugars, your starches, your fibers. And the natural carbohydrates are going to be from your fruits and vegetables, dairy, and your whole grains. And then on the right side, you're going to see all the different types of names that can be for added sugars. So they're not always going to put sugar on the ingredient list. It may be in a different word form there. And yes, honey is an added sugar. So functions of natural sugar versus added sugars. So natural sugar from fruit, from vegetables, your brain is utilizing that sugar for brain power and for fuel. It's, usually with a natural sugar, you're going to get some sort of fiber benefit, specifically from fruits and vegetables. So digestively, that's going to help us. Added sugars, as you'll notice, a lot of jargon there, but essentially it's giving benefit to the taste and the flavor of the food, but not necessarily any benefits to our body and our heart. So that's kind of the difference there. So not all carbohydrates are bad. I feel like that's a huge thing right now. We need carbohydrates to function appropriately and to have appropriate function of our organs. So how much is too much? The American Heart Association came out with these numbers that for women, about 6 teaspoons or 25 grams of added sugar a day is your recommended limit. And then for men, 9 teaspoons or 38 grams of sugar as a limit as well. So how much do we think the average American gets?
Way more.
22 teaspoons of added sugar is the average consumption. That's over 240% of the recommended amount, 88 grams or an additional 350 calories a day. So if you think of it in the course of a year, visually, that's like gaining 36 pounds just from those added sugar calories. So usually you're seeing that from a lot of sugary beverages. We tend to forget that the things that we drink contain calories or sugar. And so really reducing your consumption of sugary beverages a lot of the times is my first goal for patients. Baked goods, desserts, fruited and flavored products, so thinking like fruit flavored yogurts, they have the marketing ploy that they're healthful, and they can be, but usually there's a lot of additional sugar that's added to that flavored product. Toppings and coatings, condiments, sauces and salad dressings, so your ketchup, your barbecue sauce, salad dressings, I mean your French dressing, even an oil and vinegar can have added sugar in it too. That's why we read the labels, like this one. So with the new food label, they're actually making it easier to determine what part of the sugar content is added sugars. So if you see, it's kind of small, but you'll see it right under total sugars. It does list the added sugar amount there. So depending upon how much you want to focus on, from a heart patient perspective, we do encourage looking at the saturated fat, the trans fat, making sure that those related to the total fat are fairly low. We always want trans fat to be 0, because again, that's the partially hydrogenated oil. Sodium, if a food is less than 140 milligrams per serving, that's considered low in sodium. So those are foods that would be considered appropriate from a sodium standpoint. So again, thinking of the total food, not just the sodium. But the carbohydrates here, again, to try to reduce your triglyceride levels from a diabetic standpoint, being mindful of how much a food can contribute from a carbohydrate standpoint. So all of these numbers here are related to the serving size. So I don't know if you can see this, but the serving size on this example is 2/3 of a cup. There are 8 servings in this container. I just educated someone yesterday who had been a diabetic for years, and for years had thought that the numbers that were listed were for the whole container. And so you never know. So it's definitely something where it can be the whole container, but most of the time there's several servings involved. So when you look at those numbers, make sure that you recognize what the serving size is and how many servings are in a container. Usually, if it's less than 30 grams of carbohydrate, that allows you to have other options at a mealtime. Usually in between 60 and 75 grams of carbohydrates for men, 45 to 60 for women. That's a general recommendation. So if it's 30 grams for a serving, kind of allows you to have a few other carbohydrate-rich foods at a meal. But really from an added sugar standpoint, I like to be a little bit, the recommendation used to be 15 grams or less. I like to say from an added sugar standpoint, trying to do 10 grams or less. If you think of a teaspoon, 1 teaspoon of sugar is about 4 grams. So when you look at that added sugar, this one has 10. You're looking at about, I can't think, almost 4.5. So that's kind of something to think about there. So from a visual portion size standpoint, I like to say use your hands. They're always with you, so whenever you're outside of your kitchen, you're eating out, these are things that you can kind of utilize to watch your portion sizes. So a fist size, we usually recommend that for your starches, rice, pasta, also fruit, and your vegetables. I like to say try to do 2 fists for vegetables. Palm of your hand for your protein, a small handful for nuts and dried fruit. 2 handfuls for, snacks, a thumb for peanut butter or cheese, and then the tip of your thumb for any cooking oil, added sugar, or butter. So physical activity, like we said before, these are just some general recommendations. Start with a 15-minute daily walk at a time that's best, gradually increasing time and intensity, working up to 60 minutes of moderate or to vigorous activity a day can help with weight loss. Okay, that's all for me. Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicolette. Set some greens here. So now I'm really excited to introduce Chef Mary Berg to us. So Chef Berg has been a culinary educator since 2001. You can also tell that she told me to say that she is really good at bedazzling and catering and making things look great and taste good. So she's got some really good ideas for how we can make those, some of the boring vegetables and things actually taste good and make people want to eat them. So we're really excited to have her. Welcome, Mary.
Hi, everybody. It's Valentine's Eve. So does that allow, can we eat lots of sugar? And just kidding. Thank you for the intro. So yes, I've been here for a long time and it makes me feel really old, but I love it. So we'll leave it at that. What I am going to go over tonight, and I like to keep this really casual. If you have questions, please ask. And I will, if you're up for it, have some people come up and taste. Michelle, I did a whole thing of tasting spoons. Do you mind bringing those down? Thank you. So let's start with salad first, and grilled vegetables. Is everybody excited about salad? You are? Normally people are like, oh God, do we have to have a salad? And, I think it gets overlooked a lot though. Do you agree with me on that at least? Okay, so salads, they're my thing. Ever since I was a chef apprentice, that was my thing, is making a really cool salad, something that would really pop, and always trying to put a little bit different flavor in there. So I've learned through the years and years of being a chef that you have to layer those flavors. So I'm going to show you one of my signature vinaigrettes tonight, and it is an orange scented balsamic vinaigrette. But I'm going to show you how to make it emulsified, because we've all seen, the vinegar and oil, right? You mix it or you have to shake it and go crazy with it. A lot of people feel that you can't get much flavor that way. So I'm going to show you the opposite. And the emulsification will stay in the refrigerator. It's good for about 3 weeks. At least. Sometimes it can go even a little bit longer. I mean, with all of that vinegar in there, it of course is a great preservative. So, and as I go along, I'll talk to you about other things that you can do with this, because this was a complete accident. I didn't start my day off thinking, wow, I'm gonna create something cool with an orange. I must have been sleeping when I put my orders in one day, and so I just didn't have the things that I needed to make basically vinaigrette for 500. So I started getting creative. Thank you. And in the over time, kind of just learned more and more and more about it. So let me show you these. Anybody know what this is? What kind of lemon it is? Yeah, Meyer lemon. Good job. We have regular old traditional navel oranges, and then what about this one? See the color? What'd you say? This is a blood orange, right? So, agreed. All three have very different flavors, or are going to be slightly have more acid. More sugar, so again, different layers. Know what's seasonal. All of that stuff plays into it. So what I want to do is kind of show you some different things that, so you can use all the different parts and are able to, it's not just making a vinaigrette with it. I've got grilled vegetables here. We have actually a cake that I baked with olive oil. So there's a lot of different options that play into it. But let's see, I've got all of this mise en place done down here, so we'll kind of we'll zest and we'll look at making this at the same time. And gosh, you guys are on it. They're going to serve you samples so that you can check everything out. And I do want to give you just a heads up on the grilled vegetables. We went just over the top with them. Kidding. They have olive oil, salt, and pepper on them. That is it. So I really want you, we didn't do any vinaigrette on that. Hopefully none of it got on there so that you could really taste it. And so many times I make grilled vegetables and people go, oh my gosh, it's so good. What did you do to that? And I'll say, I put some salt and pepper on it. Because a lot of times we just don't think of doing that and making that extra part happen. So, all right, back on track. We'll do the blood orange so you can see the difference of it. You can roll it a little bit so that it's easier to juice. Can you see this? We got enough angle here. So zesting, everybody know a microplane? Right, a lot easier. It's going to be a lot finer, blood orange. Okay, so if you're not using balsamic, which is really dark colored, you could use a apple cider vinaigrette with this and you're going to get more of this color. You can take the juice, because we all have so much time, and kiddingly, and reduce it, add heat to it, and then cool it, and you're going to get more of a syrup with it. So that would make a more intense flavor. So the long and the short of it, you can get all kinds of different flavors with it. So this is garlic, and I'm not going to lie, I don't measure. And that's one of the things, don't measure when you're making stuff like this. You want to do it to your taste. One thing, so this is about 1.5 cloves if you want to keep track. One thing that I always teach our apprentices as we start, that's going to be a little bit over, I don't know, it's about a tablespoon, is that when making dressings, the classical, because we do classical French training, the ratio is 1 part vinegar to 3 parts oil. Ugh. You know, it's just like, ugh, so intense oil. So I talk about how to balance it. Most greens, what do they taste like? What are they mostly composed of? Water, okay? So are they bland? Some of them. You know, if you have arugula, it's going to be more spicy. A lot of different things going on. So if you have a blend, you want to think about the flavors of the lettuce. Can you tell I think about lettuce a lot? Of the greens. And then you want to see, is it bland in the mix? Do I have something spicy? Something that is a little bit more bitter? And then think about what flavors you want with it. So fresh thyme, I love in this. And then you can use whatever as far as to give it the components to emulsify, as well as what flavors you like. Have people that use just a scant amount of maple syrup. Use the what kind do I have here? The agave syrup. Also honey, I like to use local honey, and it doesn't take much of it. Another thing you can do is use absolutely nothing like this and go down, get mustard, demustard. I also have done a balsamic that has a fresh grated horseradish in it, which you really have to like horseradish, but it's really pretty good. So I'm measuring this because I want to make sure I give it to you right here. About 2 teaspoons. So got that, got everything going. We're going to use the smallest food processor that's ever been made, because I typically make 5 gallons of this and I didn't want to do that. Okay, so getting really good quality, and I will do this. Balsamic is a huge, huge thing. So I want to show you as I pour this. I don't know if you've, well, it's not even gonna, do you see how thick this is? I mean, normally it's going to be really, you know, what kind of vinegar you have at home, it just, there's not going to be any thickness to it at all, but this is almost like syrup. So the sugar content's going to be higher in it, but it's more concentrated. So you don't need quite as much of it. Can you see how, whoa, yeah, you can, because I threw it on the side. So we'll do, oh gosh, about this much. And see, I'm bad about that. I have 3 people in my family, and when I cook, I have to take stuff to the neighbors because I'm used to cooking for 50 plus. Another thing with the extra virgin olive oil, this can be really strong in a vinaigrette dressing. It can get really intense. So you can neutralize it a little bit and cut it in half with avocado oil, or what would be another appropriate oil. Want to give us some thoughts on that?
Grapeseed?
Grapeseed?
Maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So this is so neutral. Look at this. You can tell by the color of it. So you're not going to get that really intense olive oil flavor that sometimes can be really, really overpowering with it. So you've eaten the salad. What'd you think of the vinaigrette? Okay, the whole batch I made up there, which was a good gallon. Yeah, at least, because I went a little crazy. It had about 3 tablespoons of honey in it. So you can tell that that does have the balsamic has a lot of sugar in it. So we'll take that out first. And then we're just going to drizzle this in. Now, do you know what I mean by an emulsification? Anybody? Go for it. What that looks like? Right. It's going to bind together. So it's just the same process when you're making, say, an aioli or mayonnaise or anything like that. You can do this in a blender. You can do this in a teeny tiny food processor like this. You can do it with an emulsion blender if you have that, with a cup or a bullet or whatever. But I found that all age groups really dig it. They like the emulsification. They're always surprised that it's a vinaigrette. And it also clings to the greens more. So the only thing I didn't add is salt and pepper, but I will. And this just like got started, so it'll be a lot thicker. See how different? Can you see how it blended together? And I would add probably at least another cup of that oil and just drizzling it in there, and then put it just in a deli container or whatever, something that's clean, in your refrigerator. And then when you're ready to use it, there'll be about this much vinegar that settles on the bottom, and you just give it a shake with the lid on, and then you're good to go. Another huge difference, if you're, my family's like, what, we gotta eat lettuce? Is that I actually have the greens in a bowl, which is always a good start. These are looking a little sad because they've been out for a minute. And do the dressing. Add our, I cut these up fine. They're bias cut. So they look a little different. And then the sweeter peppers that are sliced really thin. And then take it, dress it, mix it all together so it's just more pleasing to the eye as well. And then salt and pepper it. Doesn't need a ton of the salt, but just enough to make that difference. My husband eats very healthy. I typically eat over a trash can. That's what most chefs do. So we do prep like on Sundays, and then usually again tonight. Thank you so much that I'm here. I don't have to do it. And I'll cut up and we'll put these in different, just storage containers. And then with the greens, you can actually, and I brought a cryo bag, but you can use a Ziploc bag. And some of you might already know this, but getting the greens, getting them already done in the bag, if you have any time, I really empower you to not purchase those. I don't know how many of you know the process of what's done with those? No? Okay, well, we're not going to go there, because if you are eating them, they're still going to be better than other things. But what I did with this is submerged, but I left some of these ends on. And this part right here, if you ever hear people go, I don't like greens because they're bitter. Well, yeah, they are when you leave these ends on. Like that, you want to go through and cut them or twist them off. Personally, I don't have time to twist off every green. So when I get, full ones or the little, I usually get the tinier baby, like, what am I trying to say? Romaine or leaf, and it might be a little more wasteful, but at least they're eating it, is cut the bottom part off. So do I need to wrap? Oh yeah, do it. So anyway, depending on if these are, I submerge them in a little bit of ice water. So like a cup of ice water, and then I actually have a small like salad spinner. You know, here we have 5-gallon one, and then get the water off of it, dampen a paper towel, put that in a Ziploc bag, seal that up. It'll last a week. Crazy week. And you ever seen that dead lettuce? It's really slimy and gross, and you're going, huh. And yeah, it's mixed in with all the beautiful lettuce, and you're like, why? So that will prevent that from happening. And to me, that's always a happy thing, because I don't like dead lettuce, it's gross. So next thing that's being passed out is the cake, the olive oil cake. And I think that Michelle brought recipes in for that. So it's kind of interesting. I did a whole grain flour, and then I did a medium grind as far as the cornmeal with it. And then it has olive oil, the eggs. I cut the sugar in half. And what else did I do? It does have Grand Marnier in it. Wanted to make sure that you do know that. Oh yes, it's an orange liqueur. So it does definitely have that flavor. So it's a little intense, I think. Next time I'll probably cut that back, or not. So and you can see this one, I dusted it with a little bit of powdered sugar, or maybe a lot, and just did fresh berries. But you could actually take the berries and you could macerate them, meaning you could add a little bit of a liqueur to them, some sugar, or a little bit of honey and lime juice, and then kind of like just old school how you would mash potatoes. Just take that, mash them up, or use a fork, and then as you cut each slice, you could take that macerated berry and just kind of drizzle that over the top, because it's a coarser, drier cake, but it's kind of foxy, don't you think? Yeah. This is my portion. Moderation, right? Is this okay? All right. So, and the other interesting thing with this was, and part of why I cut the sugar is, in the pan, normally when you grease a pan and then you do flour and that whole dog and pony show, well, this one, you actually use olive oil in the pan and then sugar. So yeah, I was up back there just dusting them all with sugar. So I thought that was kind of cool. And it didn't take that long to bake it either. And I kept rotating it because they were going a little bit topsy-turvy, because there's so much air and the batter is so thick.
Thank you guys so much for coming. We had a lot of great questions. Lastly, I want to talk about our next one. So March 6th, I believe, we're moving to the first Wednesday of the month, and it's actually going to be on a little bit different topic. So we're going to be talking about healthy aging and really, kind of keeping ourselves healthy to be active as we age, which doesn't mean that we're old, right? It's just we want to be able to stay active as we move through that process in life. So hopefully you guys can make it to that one, and we have other ones scheduled for April and May as well. Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. We'll see you guys next time.